Lizzie Harrison for Card Player TV, and today I'm here with Jared TheWacoKidd Hamby. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. I'm happy to be here.
So you're known in the poker community as a master of bankroll management. How do you manage your money? Let's start there.
Well, I like to, first of all, I don't like to keep too much online because you can't do anything with your online money. It's just kind of sitting there, and I don't play like big cash games too often. So when I hit a score online, I usually cash out, and I try to keep most of the money I have in some kind of investment or something that's gaining some kind of interest or something, you know, instead of just having it sit around or stuff like that. So, I try to keep a decent portion, for buy-ins and stuff like that, and to withstand the variance and stuff. But mostly, I keep my money in other things.
Do you keep your bankroll separate from your living expenses and things like that?
No, not really. No, I keep it all out of the same thing, just to keep like a spreadsheet,
What other kinds of investments do you have?
Mostly, I'm just in the stock market, just mostly like big, like just blue chip type companies, nothing, too crazy, just buy and hold stuff. And then, I own a house, which is kind of a bad investment right now, but it's a long-term thing, so, but some mutual funds too, some long-term stuff like that. I have an IRA, I set up a retirement fund too.
That's really smart.
Yeah, you don't have to put too much in a year, and that adds up over time, so.
So have you always been really good at managing your money, even before you were a poker player?
No, not really. It's something I learned through poker.
Did you learn it the hard way?
Yeah, for sure. Before I started reading any forums and, excuse me, talking to other pros and stuff about it, when I first started making a lot of money, I didn't really know what to do. And I would probably play too high sometimes and stuff like that. And yeah, I went bust a few times when I was starting out, pretty much everybody does. And yeah, you learn the hard way. And yeah, I guess, like I said, I learned a lot from reading other people's stuff on the forums. Mm-hmm. Everybody, when people are able to share ideas and through their experiences and stuff, and you learn what not to do and stuff like that. So I learned a lot off the forums.
What types of mistakes have you seen other players make?
Well, a lot of people, I know one common thing is they'll win a big tournament, and you'll like immediately see them sitting in a huge cash game. Like somebody will win, a couple $100,000 to win the Sunday Major, and then you'll see them playing the 200, 400 PLO game on full tilt or something like that, and you're just like, wow, this guy's going to lose it all. So I think that's one of the main mistakes is when people hit a big score, they're just ready to like play big when their game might not be ready for it yet.
That makes sense.
They try to hop into cash games because they want a tournament and they lose. I think some other mistakes are just generally people just playing above their head. They don't have enough. I mean, if you don't have 50 or so buy-ins, you shouldn't be playing the tournament, unless you don't have a backer.
Well, that's what I was going to say. How do you gauge what tournaments you can afford to buy in, 50 or so?
Yeah, I mean, 50 is a pretty good number. Some people say, 30 is like a good minimum, and some people like to even say like almost 100 buy-ins. But I think, you're pretty safe with 40 or 50 buy-ins.
Do you think a player needs to take their style into account also, their playing style?
Yeah, because certain players will go on long droughts and then hit a big score with their certain styles. They'll, they won't go deep at all or they'll win. And then there's some guys that cash a lot and get a lot of thirds and fourths, and so yeah, it's playing styles is I would say if you're a really aggressive player and you're playing a high variance style, you should probably make sure to have a few more buy-ins, right? If you're not backed, then yeah, you should make sure you have definitely 50 or so buy-ins at least, I would say.
What about cash games?
Well, I'm not currently playing no limit cash, but I think a lot of people say you got to have I think 100 buy-ins is a good.
Okay, for no limit cash.
Yeah,
games?
60 to 100.
Does that differ? If
I know
I
know a lot of people are playing cash games, and especially live poker players. Online players are a lot better with money management because we've all talked so much about it. Like I said, from the forums and stuff, we learn from each other, and a lot of the live players make mistakes and they sit in the cash games that are way too big for their role. I know people that sit with 10 buy-ins or or half their bankroll in big cash games and stuff, and you just can't do that. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how good the game is.
It's variance.
Yeah, if you run bad and you're not bankrolled for it, and you can take a huge hit, and it happens to a lot of people. It's something you can easily avoid with some self-control and game selection.
Well, do you think that you need a bigger bankroll if you're going to be playing cash games that are short-handed or heads up because the variance just is so much bigger?
Yeah. short-handed cash games online can get pretty crazy. That's why I'm not even really playing them right now because the players are really good, and I think there's value in other places. But so I'm not the best to talk to about cash games, but definitely if you're playing head up, I'd say you probably should have about 100 buy-ins because there's a lot of variance in head up, and and that's some people say that's pretty nitty or whatever, like but
Safe.
like I say, yeah, you don't want to go broke, so you can always move up, slowly after you shouldn't move up until you're winning a lot anyway, so.
Yeah. Well, that goes into my next question. When do you think a player should take a shot at a bigger game or a bigger tournament? How should they evaluate that?
Well, you need to be tracking your results, I think, somewhat, and you need to be showing a really successful win rate over a pretty decent sample, like 10,000, 20,000 hands is pretty small, but if you're beating 3-6 for a good amount, you move up to 5-10, but I would say when your win rate is like 2 to 3 BBs per 100 hands or something, you're pretty good. You can move up.
What about moving back down? If you're on a downswing, should you be lowering the buy-ins of the tournaments or the stakes you're playing in cash games?
I think it's always good for confidence, especially to move back down when you're losing.
But it's hard, right, to move back down?
It can be for some people that just because they're used to the action. And it's not, it's hard for them to play as well when there's not as much money on the line.
Yeah.
I think that's why a lot of people like to multi-table. I know a lot of people, when they're losing at a higher buy-in, they'll drop down. Like, let's say they're playing 10-20 no limit and it's not going so well. A good thing to do would be, like, drop down to 3-6, but maybe play 3 or 4 tables.
Okay.
And, you could maybe be having a better hourly rate that way, or, with less variance and keeping, it's safer because the limits are smaller,
So do the things that we just discussed apply the same way for live and online? Or
yeah.
What differences are there really in bankroll management?
I think you can get away with having less buy-ins playing live because you don't play as fast and you don't play as many.
Okay.
Online, it's easier to just, you lose, you jump in another one, you lose, you jump in another one. So I think, maybe you could drop 10 to 20 buy-ins off or so for live players because you just can't play as much, the volume,
Well, you mentioned you learned a lot from the forums. What did you learn about taking care of your money?
Well,
or maybe who helped you the most?
I can't really think of any specific. Oh, well, I know there's a really good article. It's several years old, but it still, holds
Very
water.
relevant.
Yeah. It's by Fox. Is his name? He's an old poster on Pocket Fives.
I read that article before the interview.
Yeah, there's in the archives, you can go to his article on bankroll management, and I mean, it's way better than anything I could tell you right now. I mean, I would definitely suggest everyone go read that article, even though it's old, it still is very good. So.
Well, you definitely had a lot of good stuff to say.
Oh
Thanks
yeah,
for coming by, Jared.
it was my pleasure. Anytime.
Lizzie Harrison with Jared Hamby for Card Player TV.